First of all, I think your analysis was very straight line. History doesn't run in a straight line.
Kid, you cannot tell your neighbor he is stealing ducks when you are stealing funds.
As High Commissioner, I was wrong. As Charandas Prasad, I reacted naturally how any person would have.
I did not come here for that kind of abuse. I did not come here for that kind of abuse. If you're going to go along that road, I'll walk off.
But it's all okay once they're talking. If they weren't talking, I could not have been here today.
You got ADHD.
I got that thing.
No, calm down.
I think I've done enough in terms of taking our team out of trouble from losing.
Come on, Lou Taylor. That's good. I'm reading the script now, and the first person that comes to my mind to play a detective,
Yes,
but
the
an
Guyanese critic.
erratic
Mikhail
detective, is Mikhail Rodriguez.
Why an African slap an Indian? Why a man and slap a woman? Look, how you deal with that? You deal with that.
We must encourage platforms like this because it brings together different people and allows for discussions to take place in our country on a multiplicity of fundamental issues.
You apologizing for something you think I did is wrong. I don't want you to do that, and you should not have done that. Hi there, welcome to the Freddie Kissoon Show. My co-host Akash Persaud couldn't make it this evening. When I was in Wortmanville as a young man, I wasn't doing anything with my life, but I wanted to do something with my life. And then I met the father of my guest this evening, our guest in the studio. And he took me in his wings, and I never looked back from there on. He formed an organization called East German Guyana Friendship Society, which he was educated in Germany, and he brought back a German wife. He was a big name in the PPP, Gerhard Ramsaroop. Gerhard took me in his wings, and I never looked back. I got a meal from Gerhard. I learned to travel around Guyana. I mixed with intellectual people, the PPP leadership, and that was the beginning for me. I think I owe a lot to the father of this guy in the studio this evening. Now, let me briefly tell you a little bit about this guy in the studio, because I've known him before he was born, because I knew his father very well. I think he could have been one of the biggest names in the PPP leadership. I think he could have been one of the biggest names in the AFC leadership. I think he could have been one of the biggest names in politics. What happened, he will have to explain. But I think the migration of Gerhard Ramsaroop to Germany was a loss to Guyana, because one thing we need in the third world, we need politicians with integrity. And I can tell you, I've known him before he was born. So I saw him growing up as a little baby. Then he became big. Then he became into my class at the University of Guyana. Then he followed in his father's footsteps, joined the PPP, was in the PPP leadership. Then he went over to the AFC, where I campaigned with him. And I could tell you the reception I saw that he received from this nation. Unfortunately, he left. I don't know if he's coming back. He lives in Germany. Our guest this evening is former PPP activist, former foundation member of the AFC, Gerhard Ramsaroop. How do you say hello in German? Oh, guten Tag.
Guten Tag.
Guten
Or
Tag.
simply hello.
I learned that.
hello, hello.
I learned that from your father, Guten Tag. So we all used to say when we meet,
Yeah.
Guten Tag, Guten Tag.
Guten Tag.
Tag. So Gerhard, it's a long journey. You followed your father and you went into the PPP. Relate that experience with us. I know you were a big name
Well,
in the
before
PYO.
that, Fred, I really want to thank you. It always warms the family's hearts to hear you speak, of my father like that,
Yeah.
I have my brothers and siblings in Germany, and it makes us feel very good.
Please send the program to him.
And
right?
I totally appreciate it, Freddie. And the experiences I've had here, from that beginning, have really been wonderful. And even though I may have left Guyana, Guyana has never left me. It's in my blood, And to answer your questions, the politics evolved over a period of time. I grew. I had an awakening experience when I was at university during the time when I was in your class that helped me to see a different perspective. And I would like to think that throughout I remained true to my core principles, which is trying to fight or trying to somehow help in whatever way for there to be a better Guyana. I remember coming here even before I could speak English. My dad took me straight to Freedom House. I became a member of the Pioneers, and he would always regale me with stories from the 1950s. Of course, in the run-up to the 1953 election, he would love to say how he had campaigned for both Burnham and Javelin during that time, and that it was a time of unity. And that stuck in me as a child, probably in a naive way, but it became my core, and that influenced how I moved forward here in Guyana.
So it was natural then to gravitate to the PPP because your father, if you cut his blood, the PPP blood would flow out.
Well,
so you went into the PPP.
Well, that
I know you were big in the PYO.
Yes,
the
yes. Well, that was the beginning, but I mean, it was more than that. It was more than that. That was the beginning, and I evolved, and I was able to get myself involved in all facets in Guyana's politics and representing all people in a very broad way, in much the manner in which it was in 1953. And that was part of my move toward the AFC when I helped to found the AFC, and also afterwards with the coalition in 2015, because these were things that I felt were good for Guyana.
You want to tell us about your days in the PYO, Chedi Jagan? You must be still very, very fond of him.
Absolutely. In fact, he played a pivotal role even in me being born, because my at the time it was East Germany, and East German citizens were not permitted to leave. And when my mom wanted to come with my dad to Guyana in 1970, they weren't allowing her, and it was Chedi Jagan's intervention. He wrote the foreign ministry, and they gave her permission to leave. And within a short time of her coming here, I was conceived and then born here in Guyana.
So
and he definitely played a pivotal role. I mean, his 60th birthday. I actually have a photo here on my phone because I came back now and went through a lot of family photos. His 60th birthday was in our home in Lamaha Gardens.
Okay, so Chedi Jagan will always be hanging there in your mental window.
Yes. Definitely. I mean, like I said, it's shaping, it's where I came from, but as I said, I also evolved.
Okay. The evolution took you to the AFC.
Correct.
That was a moment in Guyanese history that Caribbean hardly have seen. This third party challenging the two Leviathans.
Yes.
So tell us about that.
Well, I mean, it was a beautiful thing at the time. I mean, especially in the beginning, how we were received. And of course, there was a lot of nostalgia, a lot of high emotions, throughout Guyanese, because we all crave this unity,
Why? What was your experience like as a PYO youth? Did you feel that that was your homecoming? That was something you had to do, get involved in politics?
Well, it gave me exposure. I'm sure I gained from that later in life when I campaigned, because I mean, like I said, entering politics as a child, your entry is very naive, you know, and almost black and white, simplistic. And being in there, learning, you know, to talk to people, going out there, listening to people, certainly helped my evolution later. Or as I grew and I got deeper into politics, it certainly gave me a good understanding. And I mean, there was a camaraderie. There was, you know, growing up, you had that as in any kind of organization or club. You know, we felt close to each other. We were protective of each other, and you know, it was like I said, it was a good beginning.
Did you gel personally with Chadi?
I was a boy. I was a boy.
Did you go up to him and talk to him?
Well, yes, he knew. I mean, you know, there was always a warm relationship, but I never developed like a close personal relationship per se. As I said, he would come to our home. We would go to his home, you know.
Well, you would be small and your father would
exactly,
be engaged.
And my father would be the one, you know.
Who are the PPP leaders you have fond memories of?
Quite a few. I mean, growing up, you know, I spent time in Freedom House. They were pleasant. They were pleasant times. It was a simpler time, you know, and a number of people. I mean, you know, it was warm at the time. It was nice.
The overall ideological picture of the PPP of the world at that time, USSR,
yes,
Cuba,
the
that
Cold War.
was that you think those days, the memories of those days are implanted in you?
They are, and I actually started in East Germany, because East Germany, during the time when I left or when I was there, they had these stamps where if the cost of a stamp was 5 cents, they would add 2 cents, they would have a +2, and that +2 went to Vietnam. So at an early age, I knew of these things, injustices in the world, knew of inequality, and that started even in the GDR. And when I came here to Guyana, that education in that way continued, you know, and where I felt that it was my duty to always align myself with those who I felt needed it most.
That whole socialist trust, that whole anti-colonial that you were born into.
Correct, yes.
You miss those days?
In a sense, I mean, like I said, they did shape me. You know, that was the beginning, you know, of things to come. It gave me a specific direction. You know, it gave me a sense that we really need to mold our own destiny here. And I still remain extremely hopeful in Guyana, extremely hopeful in our people. Living abroad has really made me miss home in so many ways, you know, and particularly I would say our culture, you know, the warmth of Guyana, literally the warmth, not just the sunshine, but the people.
The UG days, you were one of my students. You were quite popular in the class. I wonder if it had to do with this white boy.
That has always been a little tough because of my very vehement anti-colonial stance. You know, it's a little conflicting and sometimes surprising to people. You know, the way that I talk and the things that I connect to. I would only hope it hasn't ever given me an unfair advantage. But the thing is, I can never know what it is to walk in someone else's shoes who has been oppressed and judged on the basis of their color. You know.
All right. The evolution from the PPP to the AFC. I thought it was unthinkable that in 2011, now I campaigned with you. We were there.
Yes.
I campaigned with you. I remember. I know, and I forgive me, Gerhard, but I'm an academic, and I studied. And I always felt that this penetration you had in Guyana had to do with this white boy thing. This white boy in part of the PPP, part of the AFC.
Yeah.
But their reception to you was tremendous.
Yeah.
And I want you to be frank and be profoundly frank, maybe brutally frank in this interview, so what you say here could go into Guyana's historiography. I campaigned with you very closely in the 2011 elections, and I saw people's attitude to you. I mean, you were able to influence people. I remember when the Ramata presidency became a minority, we went all over Guyana to explain why you're cutting the budget because you want the government to do this and do that.
Right.
And the reception was just tremendous. I couldn't believe in 2011 that you would not have been a member of parliament. Something went wrong there. Could you be very frank? Now, I'm telling you what I heard. And I heard this from very good sources, reliable sources. I've heard this from your friends. That there were the usual nepotism in Guyana's political culture, and you lost out.
Well, two things. I mean, back to color. I mean, yes, look, I wouldn't discredit any analysis on that. I am aware of the role color has played in the colonized world, and or anywhere else. And I would like to believe that it was more than that. You know, I mean, as a person, you would want to believe that. And if it is, it would come, as I said, in that I only campaigned on what I believed in. It's what I still do. It's what I still intend to do. Because, as I said, Guyana has never left me. And to that point, yes, there was an expectation. But as I was there at that table and the persons who were being elected by the committee to parliament, I saw the shape up. I saw the ethnic shape up. And it wasn't hard for me to accept at that point in time, given the persons who were already elected before me, that it would have been too much of an imbalance had I also been added to that. And I accepted it. And I was prepared to continue, which I did. Up to the point I had resigned from the AFC. I believe it would have been in 2014. It was definitely in the run-up to the 2015 elections. The reason I resigned is that while I get it that you had to have your cards close to your chest, you know, there are complexities in politics, but I thought the manner in which we were saying we will not be working with the PNC at the time, the manner in which it was being said, I thought would have been too divisive and open old wounds. And as principal, I had objected to that because I also thought it was natural at that time, given what had happened in 2011, that this is the way to go. It is going in the direction of what we would have had in 1953, something that was more united. And I think the things that went wrong afterwards could probably even be traced to that because of the way it seemed so combative, that it also created some distrust from the very beginning.
But you were too huge in the AFC leadership to have walked away in 2014, man. I know from the AFC, I went to people.
Yeah.
I went to people. Now, this was never been said. I do a daily column, which thousands of columns. And I've never said this. But I went to people and I said, look, I think Gerhard is staying away. Why don't you guys talk to him? And I got the distinct impression that people felt that you were in their way. No.
Yeah.
Now, before you answer that, we had 3 weeks ago, or 2 weeks ago, I remember, we had Timothy Jonas here. And Timothy Jonas said openly on this program, one of the reasons why Nigel Hughes never made it in the AFC, because there was tremendous jealousy of him in the PNC and the AFC. And look, I know your father well. I campaigned with your father. Your father was one of my saviors. And therefore, I had this fondness for you. And I was seeing what was happening with you in the AFC. But don't you think you should not have left?
I don't think so. I honestly don't regret it because, like I said, I try to stay true to my core. And the thing is, we must understand the symbolism. It's like even if you disagree, it has to be done on a matter of issues and principle. And when you kind of seem to be very angry and visceral in a particular direction, like when you insult the PNC or when you insult the PPP in Guyana, it is synonymous with insulting an ethnicity. And I felt that the way in which the PNC was portrayed as being so unpalatable, I thought for me, my feeling was that this went beyond just dealing with the entity, that this would have repercussions into the wider society. And it was too uncomfortable for me at the time to really continue in that vein. And also, as I said, I was of the firm belief that we should have coalesced back then. It was just my personal belief. So those two things, the fact that I wanted the coalition and the fact that I felt that trying to distinguish, at the time, the AFC trying to distinguish itself from the others went a little too far.
Now, people would not know this, and I haven't written about this. Now it is being said. You always in the AFC said to people, do not go roughly on the PPP and the PNC. And I remember you had a huge exchange with someone named Balwant Singh. He was an immigration consultant in Guyana. He died a few months ago. And Balwant came to me and said to me, Gerhard is telling me I mustn't criticize the PPP. And I remember I went to you and I remember you distinctly saying, that is not the way to go. Just do not be confrontational with the PNC or confrontation with the PPP, because that is not AFC's politics. And I don't think people knew that. And I know about that big blow up with you and Balwant Singh.
I barely remember that. But it's something that happened a number of times on a number of levels. And the same way in the early days when we had our AFC Facebook page, I think it was very attractive. We had people from all sides being able to discuss, and which is what it should be. In fact, quite frankly, I would really like to see here a broad alliance evolve. I am very happy with Nigel's re-entry on reemergence. Well, Nigel was always there, but the fact that he's now in the forefront, I have tremendous respect for Nigel, and there's also a personal aspect there. And I would see that also lead to something wider. I would like to see Ralph Ramkaran, Carl Greenidge, because at this point in time, Guyana faces tremendous pressures. We have from Venezuela and we have Exxon, and we as a people need to survive within this. And combative politics is not going to get us anywhere, especially at this time. And we've had too much of it, too much.
I am going to ask you to go into a pathway that is so worn out among intellectuals in the world who know Guyana, who study Guyana and write about Guyana. Gerhard, I don't think there is an intellectual out there, the people who study.
Yeah.
But I also believe the people in the diaspora who had this high hopes for the AFC. Something went terribly wrong from May 2015 to 2020 with the AFC. Something went so wrong that I think in academia, I think among the political theorists, I think among astute political observers, they feel that era has passed. What went wrong?
Yes, I do concede. I mean, not concede, it's just there. Yes, a number of things went wrong, and which is also why it was very heartening to read recently when Nigel said that he intends to address those things and apologize for those things and figure out a better way forward. In that vein, I think the AFC still, especially with Nigel, has the capacity to attract people with ideas. A simple thing I saw, I think it was in day before yesterday's papers, where someone was writing, I think Conrad Barrow was writing about architecture in the schools. Just using that as a loose example, that these are ideas that are thrown out there that I think AFC would be more open to, because that was how our action plan was formed in those early days. But yes, to answer your question, a lot went wrong. A lot went wrong very quickly. I can only say that I believe mistakes will be learned from, in the same manner as when the PPP lost power and when they regained power. You can see there were certain differences where people do learn from their mistakes, but then sometimes the old ways come back all too easily. And we are still way too fractured, and there's a lot of inequality that is going on in Guyana, and there are many things that can be done better. And sometimes, you know, we might be resigned to say somehow we're cursed, but I cannot give up hope. And recent events, like I said, the ascension of Nigel has given me renewed hope. And I think any kind of pressure during this time is good for the whole political landscape, where people will try to do better.
We'll come to Nigel. On some of the fault lines of his politics. But you were in Germany, and of course you were following. For adding to the research material that the historians will write on.
Yeah.
Where are some of these? Where did some of the things that the AFC went so badly wrong with?
Well, first of all, things didn't move quickly enough. Transformation did not occur as it should have. I think also the best and brightest were not necessarily engaged as they could have. There were a number of things that were, difficult and unpalatable right from the beginning. Things like the salary increase. And at that time, Guyana certainly didn't have the kind of revenues that it had today. And there were many ways we could have done better. The shutting down of Wales Estate, the manner in which it was done, that actually hurt me deeply, because I think I don't want to be knowing for everybody, but I think there are lots of Guyanese who don't necessarily know how the sugar industry is intertwined with all of us, in terms of ethnicity and in terms of the indirect and direct linkages. And also because Nigel and we campaigned in the sugar belt, and I was definitely left deeply shocked and hurt when that happened. I can say that's something that hurt me during that time. And as Nigel said, when I say we, it's kind of, I'm living in Germany, but in the sense that you will go back to these things, examine them, and of course, an apology is required for a number of things, the missteps that happened. Also, a general apology for letting down the populace, because there was so much hope. There was so much hope vested in the coalition. But that said, it certainly was not entirely a failure. And at least some of the things that were raised, that, we will go back to the dark days that Guyana went to, that certainly did not happen. And which sets the stage that I think people will be more comfortable with the changing of governments. And I say this unapologetically, regardless of which politician I may favor. We need change. Changes is, that's the only constant in life, change. And it is a good thing. And people must know that if you don't perform to expectations, you can be removed.
The political observer, the intellectual observer, constantly hit on one thing. They remind the AFC that they constantly say this was a coalition. Gerhard, I don't need to tell you, you live in a country where coalition, right now the Germans, a coalition with the Greens, the Social Democrats. Coalition is, this is you, this is me, this is John, this is Cynthia. Good. And Cynthia says, don't tell me this.
Right.
I want a coconut industry and money put into that coconut industry in Bremont. That is what I campaign on. You want a pig industry, you want a cow industry in Lenora, take it. That is none of my business. I am in this coalition. I promise people this. These are our core values. Don't step on it. We're in a coalition, which is a give and take. But there was no such thing. The consensus of the analysts is that the APNU dominated the coalition. The APNU. Now, Gerhard, you have to read. You have to read Moses Nagamutu's autobiography. I don't know what went into his head when he wrote that autobiography, because on page A, he's saying what the PNC did, and the PNC should not have done that. How the PNC from day one disrespected the coalition. And on page B, he's saying, well, you know, that is not the way people think about the AFC government. If you read that autobiography, it's a tragic reflection of where the AFC went wrong.
Yes, I mean, look, it's a mix of things, and I mean, everybody's perspective is going to differ somewhat because you focus on the things that would have affected you the most. Certainly, the whole coalition should have been managed better, but at the end of the day, the AFC still had a tremendous amount of power and influence with which better could have been done. And again, don't get me wrong, I am not here to outrightly condemn, particularly in the light of the direction that Nigel is going now. So, you know, understand that. I will be as careful as I can, but as honest as I can as well, because I'm not here to sugarcoat anything and try to come up with excuses and say, yeah, it was much better than it actually was. It's just that it was not entirely bad, and it certainly was not as good as it could have been and was expected. And it's a complex number of things. Yes, there was maneuvering with the PNC, and I do accept that to an extent. But at the same time, the AFC still had sufficient power with which to do better. Particularly when you're looking at the ministries of agriculture, you know, and the Ministry of Home Affairs.
But I am talking more about political culture. You tell a nation there is these two leviathans, and they have shaped the political culture. That was not exactly multiracial, was not exactly transforming. Give us a chance. And I was with you. The people gave them a chance. And this political culture even deteriorated. I mean, the AFC, I'll give you some example, but I don't want to take up much time. I want to get... I've been told by the core people inside the core of the AFC telling me that they can't do this, they can't do that, they recommend this, they recommend that, and the PNC chopping it down. But let's move on to Nigel. You keep mentioning Nigel's name a number of times here. But Gerhard, the AFC of 2005 with Gerhard Ramsaroop and his wife, and the AFC of 2011 with Freddie Kissoon, Gerhard, and the whole set of people in which we campaign and people embrace us. That's not the AFC of 2020, for example. This you keep calling Nigel's name. But one of your personal friends who in fact says that before you go back, you must have lunch with him and a group of us, and Craig. Craig was very severe on Nigel Hughes. Craig said, look at this man's politics now. This man's politics is very, 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 and I use the word very 3 times, Afrocentric. This man surrounds himself with a whole set of Afrocentric organizations. He intertwines himself with these organizations, and he appears as an Afrocentric person. But no one in the AFC 205 to 2015 could ever be described as Indocentric or Afrocentric. Do you think your father was a Marxist and he taught me about the dialectics? Don't you think the dialectics have moved on? This is not the Nigel use of 205 2011?
It is. Well, that is contrary to my experience. I campaigned with Nigel. I've campaigned with Nigel.
In an era that has gone.
Well, yeah. It has been a while back because I'm out of here. But my experience with Nigel has been vastly different. Nigel has taken on so many cases, represented so many causes, regardless of ethnicity. I mean, this is what I've seen with Nigel, you know. And then, like I said, that personal connection, Nigel did everything he could to save my wife's life, you know. And Nigel had a very good family relationship with us. And this is why I'm saying that for me, it is personal, but also I worked with him politically, and I've seen him take things without thought. And when I worked with him, I mean, yes, you're in the politics, you are campaigning, but we did things as Guyanese for Guyanese because we simply wanted a better way. I saw that with him. And this is why it resonates also with me when he says better must come. Because, like I said, I was with him, we're in the same car, we're discussing these issues, things unplanned. Sometimes we're on the road and something comes up and we divert to that area regardless of ethnicity, and we're there, and Nigel offers his services. Whether those people in the end voted for us or not was not our thought at the time. Yes, there was political work, but in the moment, it was about helping us as Guyanese, helping other Guyanese that were suffering from flooding, land issues, whatever was going on at the time. And we drew a lot of light on things that eventually helped the people, regardless of whether they voted for us or not after.
But Gerhard, when you finish.
No, sorry, and I mean, and I know Nigel did a lot of work in interior also, and so this is where I'm seeing Nigel as a more national person. As I said, I am speaking from my perspective, from what I have seen, and if I've seen a certain aspect of him doing these things, my image of him is also different. So whether he engages in something that you may think to be Afrocentric, in my mind, I've seen this person personally do things on the other scenarios for other ethnicities without blinking.
Okay. You seem to be analyzing people and places within different time span. My life, I am much older than you. And my life, if I was to write my autobiography, I would say the things I did with Takuma Ogunse when we were WPA youth.
Yeah.
I would say the things I've seen Ogunse did and David Hines did. That I cannot use those time span. I cannot use those dynamism from a different epoch and transform it to David Hines and Takuma Ogunse. Takuma Ogunse asked me to procure a chemical that to use for a violent purpose. I agreed to it because at that time we were anti-dictatorship. I don't even say hello to Takuma Ogunse because I think the politics in different epochs, you know, either dissolve or degenerate over a period of time. I can tell you about people who have been very nice to me, and their politics have gone in a way. You see, Gerhard, you said on this program, and when you look back at it, we embrace and must embrace change. Modi thought he could have appealed to Hindus. Hindus rejected Modi. Le Pen from France thought she could have bring back fascism in France. So people, now, one of the, I keep going, I will return to Leonard Craig, who said, look, this is the Nigel use now that we know. Now, put yourself in the place of an Indian, and you're looking at Nigel use the past 3 years. There is hardly, no, I'm not saying, I don't think Barajagdeo, I don't think of an Ali, I don't think Nigel use those, but I never think Burnham and Desmond Hoyton are racial, even racially oriented. So I would not think that of Nigel at all. I consider him a friend. But there has been a very, very transformed use in terms of the multiracial mosaic. And the best example I can think of is myself. I face everywhere I go, the supermarket, coming out in the gas station, Freddie, you left. Freddie, you're drinking soup. Freddie, you betrayed us. Right. Yeah. David Hines on this program 2 days ago said, when I was anti-PPP, African Guyanese treated me like a superstar. But there are things that cause people to move away. And the seminal thing that caused me to move away is that my whole life of fighting for multiracial democracy, I saw it being threatened in 2020 for 5 months. And I said to myself, this could, your father came into my memory. Kenneth Persaud, who was campaigning with your father in Ghana Street when they were beating us up for free and fair election in 73. Those are things you have to judge people on now, because in 2020, there would have been no change. There has been no statement from Nigel, and not him alone, I think from Clive Thomas. There's been no statement from Nigel on what happened in 2020. Of course, Nigel is now facing a backlash now that he's leader of the AFC, of 34 being a majority of 65. He pioneered that. But don't people change?
People do change, and these are valid. This is valid arguments. It has to be addressed, and again, like I said, it is not my intent to sugarcoat anything. I can simply go on what I feel, and I wouldn't want to use the word belief, because belief kind of is naive, but hope. And I have maintained contact with Nigel, and from my perspective, I have not seen that shift. Be that as it may, representing these things, for me, that is simply what I know of Nigel, that he will go to causes that he believes where he is needed. And for me, I see that from a humanistic point of view. I see it as human beings. I don't see it necessarily the other way, because I know personally Nigel has been there for all ethnicities. I have no reason to believe that has changed. Time will certainly tell. We have no idea sitting here how it is going to be going forward.
But shouldn't he be judged from 2020 onwards and the people he have associated with? But let's move from Nigel, that you see positively.
Yeah.
Don't you think a positive dissension on the political arena in Guyana is Irfan Ali?
I have not been here during that time, and as I said, my politics is not combative. I can say that that Irfan personally has been good to me personally. He even did me a favor at one time when he was Minister of Housing. But I am not here. I have not been here during that time. And in the short time that I'm here, what I'm seeing here is a people being left behind. So I do not want to...
But you haven't been here during the time Nigel was in Guyana from 2020.
I left in 2018.
Yeah, right. And
Right.
you singing the praise of Nigel. Why can't you sing the praise of Orphan Ali?
Because I think at this stage, Guyana needs to evolve further than this. There is a lot.
Isn't Orphan can't Orphan?
I see a lot
Orphan
of
play the same role that you attribute to Nigel?
I see a lot, like I said, a lot of inequality. I see a lot of things that can be done better, and I think that a change can accelerate that, if not during this time also, even in the run-up to the election, to have things doing better. I am not close. I'm not close within there. I don't know. I look on from the outside, and I come and I land here, and there's some things that are clearly positive, but there's an overwhelming feeling from almost everyone I talk to. And when I say everyone, I mean ordinary people. Like if I'm walking, I meet somebody in a shop or in a taxi, the ordinary people, and I have that profound sense where people feel that they're being left behind. And I see the changes also in commerce and in the shops as I walk through Georgetown. I see the chaos. There are things that definitely can be done better. And like I said, because of my personal relationship with Nigel, this transcends the AFC at this point in time. This is because of what I know of Nigel and the things that we've spoken about and why I think that this is a good direction to go in.
What direction are you talking about? What direction to go?
In the direction that Nigel is there, in the direction wherever it may head, his presence in politics.
Let me ask you this: from the time you left in Germany, you think Nigel has more multiracial play, more multiracial potential, more multiracial fertility waiting there than Orphan Ali?
Well, look, it's not only about Nigel, but a team that he can put together. That remains to be seen. But Nigel himself, as I'm saying, I know I can't convince you, and I don't know how many others I can convince, but I'm just speaking from my personal experience that Nigel has exhibited.
But you were out since 2018. Have you seen his political associations?
I don't see his associations as being against. I see his associations as being for whatever cause, but I don't see it being at the cost of anyone else.
People say the perception is as potent as the fact.
It may be a perception, but you know, it's a difference, Freddie. You can represent something without being against the other. And that is
I agree with that.
You know,
I agree with that. But that's impossible to achieve in a sharply ethnically divided.
Correct.
You have to come across as accommodating.
Correct. But I know, and I am confident. And like I said, look, I cannot predict. But based on what I know of Nigel, I am confident that once this campaign kicks off, you will see Nigel going any and everywhere.
No, but
and not just going any and everywhere, but answering and speaking to the people's problems specifically to that area with a knowledge, because that's what he always does. Nigel doesn't go in there and to speak generalities. When he goes in, he addresses the specific concerns of the area, which you can only know, in my opinion, if you care.
But how is a man going to get the embrace of people that did not support, come out against? This is a tremendous personality that people look to.
Yeah.
I've known him personally, very personal, before 2020. I know what Nigel did in the AFC as a principled person.
Correct.
I was in the AFC at the gate when he said, let ordinary people run for local government election. Let the AFC keep out the Bartica.
Correct.
And Nigel and Gerhard Ramsaroop was very, very abrasive.
Yeah.
I know Nigel Hughes could have saved the AFC when he said, the only way this coalition is going to survive, you have to have a mediation team. So when things go wrong between the two, a mediation team would step in.
Right.
The FC shot that down. But I go back to my relationship with people that were very warm to me, and I see how they deteriorated over the years. Now, is this guy going to get the embrace of people? You know, Gerhard, is one thing to be in politics. Is another thing when the elections start.
I agree.
People start to ask the question. He's going to face the, well, Mr. Hughes, from 2020, the whole world condemned this thing. Where were you? A lawyer told me that he went to Niger, very famous lawyer, and said, well, aren't you going to say something? And I just said, say what? You know, it's those things are going to come back to haunt you. Those things are,
that will have to be dealt with, Freddie. But the thing is, look, for me,
how it's going to be dealt with?
Politics in Guyana, right? It's not just, yes, it's very personality based, right? But it also has to do with what you represent. It also has to do with a team. And I am confident Nigel is going to pull together a team. Yes, he will. What these questions that you raise will have to be addressed. But right, and I mean, when I say a but, this is a but without any judgment in any way whatsoever. It remains to be seen what comes out of that, and I strongly believe that the AFC will come up with probably the best program for Guyana. And I mean that has
more than the program of an Ali,
because of the openness to taking in new ideas.
And Ali is not opposed to that. We have never had such an open-minded president in the history of Guyana. A man who goes about, meet people, they ask him to do things, and he have done it. There hasn't been an African or Indian president that have gone into over the fence and have sought to
No, that is absolutely commendable. I don't want to take that away from anyone, Freddie. But
not anyone, or Finale.
Right. I'm not taking away anything from him. But what I am saying, right, is that what I know, I have that relationship with Nigel in the sense that I've seen what he does and what he can do.
I have that relationship of Ali.
Right, I have that hope that that can be achieved. You see, there has to be balance and counterbalance. You know, there has to be a way that that everyone can look at things, try to do things better, and try to do things in as best as possible, non-combative. I know there always will be times there will be confrontations, but we need to keep that to a minimum, and we need to see what is going on. And from where I am looking at, I believe Nigel has the potential to change the political landscape in Guyana for the better.
Not and more than Ali?
I am not. Like I said, you can't be for without being against, okay? I am not here to engage in combat. Right now, my for is for Niger, because it is from my perspective.
But that blinds you as an educated man. That blinds you to the objective reality out there. If you look out through the window and you see your husband coming home every fortnight, and a young lady comes out the car, and that husband has done wonderful things for you, do you block your mind out for the fact that he's unfaithful every fortnight?
It is not blocking my mind out to it, because one of the things that Nigel said is we have to have a national plan. And one of the things that's what I also would like to see. I would like to see mechanisms that the previous government, things that they would have started, that there's a mechanism by which they can still be involved in some way. Whether I mean, I'm just speaking off of the bat here, whether as advisors, but more than that, if we have a plan that we agree to, it means that when governments change, you don't just disrupt everything. It also means that you have to maintain a relationship with what was going on before. My thing is not here to break down the PPP, to destroy, to cuss up and whatever. My intent is for us to be able to move forward in a better way, regardless of regardless of the outcome of the election, that we find a way that we do things together. If you favor Irfan, I favor Nigel, but we can remain friends. And we can try to ensure
of course,
that...
and I regard Nigel as a friend.
Exactly, and we can try to ensure that whatever happens on that political landscape happens in a good manner.
Unlike you, I have an obligation to readers that have been reading me the past 35 years.
Yes.
I've been writing the 35 years. Mm-hmm. And they expect me, when they pick up the paper in London and Lenovo, they expect the columnists to explain to them why people would vote for the AFC. Mr. Kissoon, tell us why. Why would a fan not do this and not do that? Now, I am asking you for the time that you have been away and you've been keeping in. You don't see Irfan Ali as offering some hope for a multiracial and all-embracing future for Guyana?
Unfortunately, from what I have seen, and from I have not been intimately involved because of I have my life abroad. But from what I've seen, Guyana, it still remains a deeply divided society. And you could correct me if I'm wrong, but my perception is that the current PPP government does not represent all Guyanese. It is a pretty strong perception on that one hand and on the level of ethnicity, but on the other level of class. There's also a class distinction, as I'm saying. The people who feel left behind, at least from my perspective, is many of the people that I have spoken to have that feeling they're left behind. And that is across all ethnicities. And those two factors is why I believe that better must be done.
You see Indian people, this guy becomes the AFC leader.
Yeah.
And you see Indian people constitute 39% of this population. You see Indian people saying, look, use is a man for the future?
That is offhand, in bulk, the short answer is no, but it is more complex than that. Okay, because you're bulking everyone together. But what remains to be seen is that I believe there is enough people, there's a core of people who know what Nigel is, what has done, what he represents, and it also remains to be
Before
seen.
2020, Gerhard.
I would, look, this is me speaking from my perspective. And I'm not going to waver from that because there is nothing.
Did you leave the PYO, the PPP, because you said you evolve? You've seen people that you rub shoulders with and you said, I can't stay in a long-term political relation with these people. I think, let me tell you this, and I don't want to eat into your time, you my guest.
No.
I think the Nigel I know is a friend of mine, has been good to me. I shared very, very close relationship with some people in the WPA, some people in Red Thread that I don't have any use for. Let me tell you this, Irfan. Let me tell you this, Gerhard. My life, the Freddie Kissoon you knew for so long, changed dramatically, changed phenomenally, changed in tsunamic ways when I saw people were quite prepared to lend their energy, intellectual talent, and everything that goes with their character to perpetuate permanent power. If we didn't have the world intervening in 2020, we would have had an AFC PNC government. And you talk about changes. We don't have Marine Le Pen in France. We don't have Rishi Sunak in the UK. Modi is in trouble. We don't know if his government will collapse. I don't think we should have Biden or Trump. That is change, and I think you have to judge people on those seminal issues, Gerhard.
I wouldn't get into going deeper than that. You have said, you have put it out there, it needs to be addressed. What I'm looking at is the present and now. And the present and now is that what is occurring here in Guyana, it needs to be done better. I hear you. I hear what you're saying from where it comes. But I also believe people learn and grow in the same way you say change. In some ways, yes, it can go the other way. In some ways, it can go the exact positive way. And I think, as I said, especially when I read Nigel saying, we will apologize, we will talk, we will go
But aren't you reading things what Irfan Ali says? that we will give us time, we will take care of the teachers, give us time, money's coming in 2028, that will double what we get.
I think there has been sufficient time already for better to have been done, quite frankly.
No, we're not getting what we're supposed to be getting from the oil economy.
It is more than
it's
that.
going to increase.
It is more than that.
2020.
There are things that we can do to relieve the lives of people in a faster way.
Are they doing it? There's tremendous house lot.
Those things can be done. Those like the
Hospital
cash grants
is probably the best in the Caribbean.
I'm not saying that whatever
the cash grant,
whatever good, the cash grant, whatever is good that is going on. Absolutely, it is my hope and belief. I don't want to use the word belief so loosely, but I hope those things will be continued and improved upon, and they can be improved upon. Cash grant, it should not be cash grant. I believe that should be formed in the form of a basic income where Guyanese can get the security with which they can move up from.
I don't understand why you don't put no faith in Irfan Ali. I don't understand that, and I think he has done enough to generate that hope. I live here, I see it.
Well, as I said, from what I've seen, I think more could be done. And I think it is a ripe time. I think Guyana is ripe again for a change. However it is, even if it leads back to a minority government, even if it leads to a better cooperation among political parties, whatever direction it is heading in. And this is where I am saying that I'm not sitting here from this point and leaping to Nigel's automatic presidency. I'm sitting here at this point as a changing in our political landscape. I think Nigel has a lot to offer in that regard to transform it and to better it.
Not more than Irfan Ali? More than Irfan Ali? More than Irfan Ali?
Irfan is already in there. He's already there.
But give him time. Give him time.
Yeah, but this is not about breaking.
But Nigel need the same time.
But this is not about breaking down anything. This is about augmenting.
I'm not talking about breaking
but this
down.
is about augmenting and doing better. And again, it comes back to Nigel's saying we need a national plan. This is a way for all of us to work.
I think Irfan Ali has a national plan.
I'm not taking away. I'm not taking away anything from anyone and how they work together. All I'm saying is that we need more of us working together, and I see Nigel as someone who can motivate that, who can shift the landscape, who can get more people involved, throw more ideas together.
Our operator has signaled time to go. I appreciate what you said. I just want to end by saying what you say. I have that faith in Irfan Ali. I see him as a brand new, different man who came on the scene and is going to transform Guyana. But are you coming back at any time after you leave?
I have no immediate plans. This was a very impromptu short visit. You know, it coincides with the 7-year death anniversary of my wife. My son is coming back for the first time also, for a short time here. So this is just, and we met very coincidentally on the seawall on Thursday, and you didn't give me a choice not to come here. And I came here also to answer you as best as I can, and also to offer my hopes for the nation, and hoping that we go forward in a better way.
Well, we could disagree, but we're still Guyanese and still fun. Gerhard, thanks for being here. Whenever you come back, please keep in touch, and we will do this again.
Thank you, Freddie.
Our guest has been someone you probably have known because he's left 6 years ago, but he was assumed to be becoming a very large name in Guyanese politics, but something went wrong. We will see you on Friday. Catch you later. Bye-bye.